Hello, and welcome to California's Central Coast. Home to some of Central California's most famous AVAs, we're sure to see a variety of growing sites and some unique wines, from cool coastal influences from the Monterey Bay and warm inland sites in Paso Robles, and expressive Pinot Noir and Chardonnay to hardy Rhone varieties like Syrah and Viognier. This diverse wine region is sure to uncover some great surprises. It's time to explore what California's Central Coast AVA has to offer. Approximately 280 miles long and 60 miles wide, the Central Coast AVA extends from south of San Francisco down to Santa Barbara, and east from the ocean past the coastal ranges. Some of the most well-known AVAs include Santa Cruz Mountains AVA, where grapes are planted at high altitudes, Monterey AVA, which has cooling influences from the Monterey Bay, and Paso Robles, with a variety of sites including warm valley plots and cooler mountain slopes. Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are grown throughout the AVA, and Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Zinfandel, and Merlot are reserved for some of the warmer sites. In total, the Central Coast has roughly 100,000 acres planted to wine grapes. Like most of California, the Central Coast has a rich Native American and Spanish heritage. Vines were first planted by Spanish missionaries, and for centuries, California saw the growth and then decline of plantings. In 1880, the first wine and viticulture program was established at the University of California, as the state recognized it would be a huge contender as a world wine-producing region. However, it wasn't until after Prohibition that California wine production kicked into high gear. Ever since, the quality has improved and grape growing has expanded across the state. I'm here in Paso Robles to explore the climate, soil types, and topography, all of which create a lasting influence on the final wines made in this beautiful AVA. California's Central Coast can be characterized by having a Mediterranean climate. The growing season tends to be very dry, requiring most vineyards to install methods of irrigation, most commonly a form of drip irrigation. Now, the Monterey Bay provides a cool coastal breeze, and sites near the ocean benefit from the otherwise warmer weather. This is ideal for grape varieties that benefit from cooler sites. What's interesting about the Central Coast is the southern coastal ranges. These mountains, including Santa Cruz, Gabilan, and Santa Lucia, they block the vineyards further east from cool, wet fogs that come in off the ocean. You see, as these ranges make their way further south to Santa Barbara, their orientation shifts from north-south to east-west. And what does this do? Well, it draws in cool air from the ocean to cool some of the warmer southern sites.
Another interesting point about Paso Robles is the diurnal temperature swing. It's got the largest daytime versus nighttime temperature difference of any grape growing region in the US. And so those cooler nights, we have very hot days, but those cooler nights really help to maintain the acidity when the fruit can get quite ripe.
Yeah, we had about a 45-degree difference this morning. So
that's insane.
The high here yesterday was 98, and we woke up to 60.
Yeah. Soil types will differ from AVA to AVA. The flat valley sites will often have clay and silt, as we see here, and the slopes will have rocky and poor nutrients, often producing some of the highest quality fruit. In areas with a high amount of clay, water is easily retained. As we can see here in San Benito, the topsoil is mostly clay, but they also have this brilliant white limestone, a very common characteristic with San Benito soils.
This West Paso, Willow Creek, Templeton area has the largest vein of exposed limestone, but it really promotes higher acidity in our grapes. So limestone, being very basic, raises the pH of the soil, and there's an inverse relationship with the fruit. So more basic, higher pH soil ends up producing lower pH fruit, higher acidity fruit. So our soil is predominantly clay and clay loam on top of limestone. Another advantageous part of the clay and limestone is that they both act as kind of sponges for water. We don't get a whole lot of rain here. We did this year though. We got about 50 inches this year when our average is about 25. But on those lean years where we don't get a lot of rain, that soil, the water holding capacity of the soil is really beneficial.
Why don't we talk to the winemakers and producers themselves so we can truly understand their viticultural techniques and winemaking practices here on the Central Coast. The Central Coast experiences low rainfall during the growing season, thus requiring irrigation for most sites. Because of the dry growing season, there is little risk for disease. The vines are typically cordon trained, and canopy management is necessary to allow the cool breezes to flow through the vines to maximize ripening potential. The valley sites tend to be warmer than in the North Coast, but vineyards along slopes can benefit from altitude and cooler temperatures. All right, so can you tell us a little bit about the vines behind us? I see we got some two different trellising and training systems going on.
Yeah, so everything we have planted here on the Maha estate is on a head. We do two different styles of head trained vines. This one here is a gobelet style, French for goblet, and it's trained in the shape of a goblet. And so it's really advantageous in Paso when we get really hot days. We get a lot of sun. We get 360 degrees of protection from the sun. This is a vertical cordon trained vine. This is Roussan, so claret Roussan. And the difference is the trunk is trained up and the cordon's kind of Christmas tree around it. Also providing a lot of shade, as you can see. It's more beneficial for varieties like Syrah, even Roussanne here, that have really long arms that drape over. If you were to do it in a Goblet style, you would just be breaking positions left and right whenever you did a tractor pass. So that's kind of the reasoning behind the two different styles.
Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay are common, just as in most of California, but Pinot Noir does excellent in some of the cooler AVAs. Merlot and Zinfandel are common, and Rhone varieties such as Grenache, Syrah, and Viognier are planted in sites warm enough for the grapes to reach their full ripeness. As you can see, these are getting there, but not quite yet. What are some of the plantings that you have here?
In terms of varieties?
Yeah.
So pretty much all Rhone varieties. So we've got Grenache is our largest planted variety. Then it goes to Carignan, Roussanne, Clairette, Mourvedre, Syrah, and then it goes to more Grenache, more Syrah, and then another block of Grenache, and then a block of Petit Syrah, which is the only non-Rhone variety that we grow.
Winemaking techniques reflect the unique characteristics of the individual grapes. The idea is to let the soil, climate, and vineyard resonate in the glass. These wines showcase the diverse growing environments within the Central Coast. Each winemaker is sure to have their own take, but letting the fresh, ripe fruit shine through is often a common goal.
The estate's been around for, it's crazy, 174 years, which is weird. But you know, it's a sizable estate, you know, 120 acres planted. And this used to be just like, yeah, we're gonna make a bunch of wine off the estate, we're gonna take everything from everywhere and make a few singular wines. So we've been getting increasingly just smaller and smaller and smaller tanks as we've been figuring out. We saw them lined up. We cleared most of that out for the event that we have today. But you'll see increasingly smaller and smaller parts because we're seeing all these different blocks that over time we've identified. It's like, nope, that's different than that, and we treat that separately. So all these like little separate elements of winemaking space.
And just improving and kind of just learning as you go, I guess.
Fine tuning, always looking at quota selections, and honestly, a lot of this is just getting more and more local. Like we're finding out more and more about the estate as we go on it, and so getting back more to that heritage of it. Like we're thinking about plantings a little bit of like Cap Pfeffer cuttings and Red cuttings from the local other places. Just getting back to like heritage winemaking that we've had from this place from the very beginning.
So what are some of the wines that we are seeing that are going through your winery right now? What's some of the general winemaking practices you've got?
Sure. So it's a lot of Pinot Noir is the vast majority. That's by far like what we do here. A couple of the cool pockets will do Chardonnay. We've got one little warm pocket that does the Grenache Syrah Buffet, and right across from it, that's where it's like very, very marginal. We'll find something else. And that's everything that we have on site. Well, and a little bit of Pinot Gris. I forget about the Pinot Gris. Like it's so tiny and the yields are so low that I forget about an entire hillside.
But it's just delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's great wine, but I almost forget about it. It's like, oh yeah, and we have a few tons of that in here.
So tell me a little more about these Rhone varietals, the GS7 blends. It's pretty particular to the Central Coast, much more than North Coast, Napa, Sonoma.
Sure. So when you look at, and I don't compare everything to European paradigms,
right?
Which is it's an easy trap for a lot of winemakers. But if you're to look at Burgundy, that flows into, even looking at Burgundy, Beaujolais is in the Rhone department. So you're actually flowing from Burgundy into Rhone as it starts to warm up, as you start going to the Mediterranean. So they're closer than one might necessarily think, particularly for a cool climate. So I honestly, some of these things, we don't know if the Grenache or Mourvedre are going to work. You know, it is the first couple of years they really, really struggle. And we've seen some pretty terrific results, and that's kind of what we do, is that very, very marginal winemaking where it just gets there, use the yields and your green harvesting and you're paying attention and you dial it in over time. Like it's just begging for extra work. But what else am I going to do?
Right, there you go. And it's at least retaining that acidity, a lot of that concentrated There's just a lot good that goes into that.
Concentrated flavors, longer hang times, at lower sugars, and yeah, it's the way that I think it's supposed to be.
Perfect. So, sounds good. Let's go try some of the wines.
Great, thanks.
Pretty hands-off in terms of winemaking. Minimalist, I guess you could say. The only thing we ever add really is a little bit of sulfur before bottling.
Okay.
Lots of neutral oak in our portfolio. We do use new French oak, but generally the max is like 40% in most blends. And we work with 225 liters and 500 liters. And then we have a small foudre, 1200 liter foudre behind you. 1200 liter foudre for our white wine, Claret. It's a banger. Generally, every morning during harvest, Chris and I will taste each ferment to determine whatever cap management practice we do, being whether it be a punch down or a pump over or a delisage, which is where you drain the tank and then pump it over and really breaks up the cap a lot. But everything is based off of taste. And that includes our pressing decisions as well. So it doesn't matter if it's dry or not, but whenever we feel that it tastes the best, even if it is dry and we want it to sit on skins for a while, it's all based on taste.
And so earlier we were talking a little bit about organic and sustainable practicing. What are you doing here at the winery and the vineyards in terms of sustainability?
A lot, I think. So we've been certified organic and biodynamic on the vineyard side of things from the inception. We just got certified regenerative organic, which is a new certification. We got certified last year. I think we're the 6th winery in the world to have that certification. Yeah. And then Tablas Creek, a local winery, was the 1st in the world. They were the pilot winery. Okay. Great place to check out. But yeah, so in terms of the vineyard, we've been doing it from the get-go. And our winemaking, being as minimal as it is, we're already inherently doing things organically. But the winery got certified organic in 2021. And then it was certified biodynamic in 2019, and it will be certified regenerative organic for the 22 vintage.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of the winemaking process and sustainability, the only thing that it dictates is having sulfur levels below 100 parts per million.
I'm sure that it plays a huge role in the grapes themselves and the quality.
Yeah, we think so. So in terms of the vineyard side of things, we don't do any synthetic fertilizers, any synthetic pesticides. We are very minimalist with our watering, which, as I was mentioning earlier, we have these soils that have the ability to hold a lot of water. And water is always topic of conversation in California, so we try to be very judicious with our water use. We have animals, so we have a flock of 38 sheep, now down to about 25, that we run through the vineyard during the dormant season. The rest of the time, they're roaming the property, acting as our fire suppressant and our natural mowers.
That's awesome.
And so they'll mow and poop and fertilize, and it's great.
We need to get on the mic side.
All
of those farming methods create the most direct translation of what we're doing in the vineyard into the wine. You know, it gives the truest expression. Minimal water, all native ferments, a very judicious use of oak lets the place speak.
Yeah, of course.
It's
a truer expression of terroir. Yeah, of course. There's a bunch of people talk about terroir, but then they're putting a bunch of water in the vineyard, or they're adding tan into the winery. You know,
true low intervention. Let the wine make itself.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know, there's always a winemaker's fingerprint on a wine, of course. But we want to have it's that person's particular interpretation of the place.
Yeah. Now that we've seen what goes into making each of these exceptional wines, let's try them and see just how California's North Coast is expressed through each glass. What do we got?
We've got, we're into the Via Creek wines now. Okay. So this is Rocks and Flowers, a Grenache-based blend. Taking its inspirations from Chateauneuf-du-Pape. So, Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre, the of the Carignan, and just a spot of Petite Syrah. It is all certified organic fruit. I love that salinity, gets you salivating, wants you to jump into more of it. Works great with food.
It's a great food line.
But you've got a little more depth, a little more structure.
Right. Yep. A little bit, kind of getting some like peppery notes even.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it does. Syrah is the second highest variety in there, so that a lot of that pepper's probably coming from there.
Yeah, like you said, that structure and the tight tannins, and you know, a lot more on the palate.
Predominantly destemmed fruit, very little new wood. I think we're sitting at less than 10% on this one. Yep. Some big barrels, some small barrels, really preserving freshness, but getting all that fruit. Just a little more serious.
Yeah. How long is it in oak for?
About 18 months.
Okay, we're gonna jump into Maha Backlit. So Maha is our estate brand that comes exclusively from this property. We make 3 wines off the property, a white and 2 reds. This is one of the 2 reds. Backlit is Syrah, Petite Syrah, Morvet, and Carignan. So conceptually, the wines are crafted on a yin and a yang.
Okay.
A light and a dark, a fruit and a savory, a masculine and a feminine. We always leave that up to the consumer. If I think you're gonna pick one for one particular, you always pick the other.
Got it.
You've got scores, you've got critics across all platforms, but wine, like art and like music, is totally subjective. You know. Now I will say, if you don't like this wine, you're wrong. But it is subjective. You know. Do you like Radiohead? Are you Radiohead, or are you LCD Sound System? Or are you, you know, are you East Coast rap? Are you West Coast rap? Beatles, Stones, whatever.
Southern rap.
Hip hop.
Hip hop.
Southern rap. That's
Southern
a
rap.
thing, huh?
Yeah, a little Boosie, a little Lane. So I grew up on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You guys are from the territory.
Yeah. Dirty South.
Dirty South.
Well, this is great. I would say this is, I don't know, the yin or the yang, but it's got a lot of, it's savory. It's got a lot of structure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
It's a good
Nice
wine.
length too.
Yeah.
It lasts in the top
for sure.
a long time.
You know, it's pretty. This is 2020. We're just getting ready to release it. It was bottled a year ago.
Awesome.
Quite approachable now, but that wine will age well 10-ish years. It will just continue to evolve. It'll start to lose that primary component and bring on more of those savory tertiary notes.
We're bottling the 21 version of this in 8 days.
And we don't make much of this. This is 150 cases of this.
It's really good.
Most of it's direct to consumer, and then we by design, try to get the wines into some really
Higher end
top
restaurants.
end restaurants, great independent retailers. So, you know, folks like yourself, like, I'm looking for this. Like, oh, try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you know, if you give the customer a gimme, like, if you don't like that wine, bring it back and I'll drink it. We'll find something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And then it's always like, okay.
Yeah, it's a
Because,
really
you know,
good
you're
point.
listening to the consumer, what are they looking for? And then I gotta,
Yeah.
let me show you something you might be interested in.
Yeah.
That's not mainstream, that's full of integrity.
Yeah. It's not cab, but it's still good.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about the Chardonnay.
Okay, so this is Siebold. So we're just moving on to the estate, but we've been working with it for a number of years. That particular part of the estate, which is tucked back in that corner, that's where all the cool air comes over the ridge and settles back into the trees and acts as that AC kind of on this entire block. This climatic inversion kind of process where it pulls that in to it.
Yeah.
So with that, especially grown on the limestone soils, we kind of have to go through full malolactic in the cellar. Otherwise, it would just be awkward and weird and high acidic. But our natural malolactic bacteria just doesn't produce So you get a lot of that kind of creamy texture and a lot of that glycerol to it. So, but I do think that there's this kind of like does a broad range of what Chardonnay can do. You get the citrus notes up front. You get that kind of lemon peel kind of aspect to it as well. You'll start moving into apples. You'll have different kind of orchard fruit. And then you'll actually have some like peachiness sneak on the back end as well. And that has to do with, we'll usually do one to three different picking times with it. So we'll get something that's on the just kind of ripe side. Most of it will be in kind of a normal picking window. And then I'll harvest a small amount of fruit on the late harvest kind of side as well to add those additional notes in. We'll ferment everything separately in different lots. And then we'll do back blending and kind of see what fits best together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of dishes would you pair the Chardonnay with?
This will actually stand up to higher acid dishes like tuna tartare, that kind of stuff as well. So because of the acid profile of it, you can actually do those kind of higher acid dishes, but this will also stand up to things that have a little bit of fat on it. So next wine we're getting into, this is the Seabold Pinot Noir off the estate. And this is actually that first ridge right on the other side of the hill.
Okay.
You'll still have some of the influence of the coastal area air coming in and around the hill. But it's this little tiny sheltered spot right there. And it's one of the earlier harvests that we'll get on the estate because there's a lot of concentration on that particular hillside. Again, it's still cold, but it's a little bit more protected. Because of that, that's the reason we can do a little bit more whole cluster on this wine. I don't push whole cluster on reds. I love it. It's something that we embrace and we look for. But if it's not appropriate, if the stems aren't linified, we don't push it. So we do as much as is appropriate for any given vintage. And that area, just the stems get a little bit woodier over there.
Yeah, because you want the stems, ripe as well. You don't
want
that greenness.
If you can tell that something's been whole cluster and stemmy, my personal opinion is you kind of done it wrong.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, like if it sticks out in that kind of green fashion, that's how we don't need to prove a point with it. I think some people kind of do at times, or they just have a de facto process for it. And that's kind of what we've seen. But when you get the riper kind of stems, that'll actually add tannin. It'll actually build the body up a little bit. I like the way that it ferments a little bit better in the tanks as well. There's a variety of factors for it. But you'll have that kind of you'll have some California sunshine as far as the ripeness on through this, but it's still kind of live. There's a concentration, but it's not heavy.
Yeah.
It's not foreboding. It's still Pinot Noir. It's very much what Pinot Noir is supposed to be in my mind.
And it's got that structure that the tannins are there, but very, very fine and very smooth. It's well integrated.
Yeah, I'm liking the way that's drinking right now.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, there you have it. California's Central Coast AVA. From San Benito to Paso Robles to Monterey and everything in between. Thanks for joining me on this trip. Many cheers.